And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest speaker for today, Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. Martha, as we all graciously get to call her, is widely known in New Thought. Martha's trainings approach deep inner work as an adventure with a sense of curiosity and wonder. A master of the art of right questioning, she calls forth self-defeating patterns to create a new way of being. Literally, she does that. Ordained in religious science and divine science, Martha has served as Great Lakes Unity Consultant and is a member of the Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute faculty. She has attended Emerson Theological Institute, Master's and Doctorate, and Byron Katie School of the Work, as well as Hoffman Institute. She is a Healthy Congregations facilitator and trainer. Let's give Martha a big, warm Unity Kitchener welcome. Martha says, knowing the truth and living the truth are two different paths. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you very much, everybody. Hi and good morning. I think that's as far as we need to go with any kind of talk today of the difference of espousing the truth and an embodiment of the truth. And this week I got a pleasure of interviewing several people that's been nominated for their work in New Thought, global New Thought wisdom. And I had the privilege of interviewing some of those nominees, which will be announced later this year. So it's a tip-top secret for now until August, but stay tuned to see who was honored this year in the Walden Awards. And one of the quotes said, understanding or theory without application is hallucination. So think about that as from a wisdom perspective, how we can speak about the truth, espouse the truth, how we can quote Myrtle and Charles Fillmore or Jesus or Ernest Holmes or Mother Mary or Martin Luther King or Justin, your prime minister, or anybody else. And without embodying that, without living from that, which is Unity's principles. So God is, I am that, I'll speak that way, I pray that way, I live that way. So these principles are not just bullet points or 5 things on a page, but a direction to go in for our life. And as you read, Cheryl, thank you, first of all, for inviting me, all of you, and Cheryl, for your wisdom to bring in somebody, anybody that you believe will be resonant with your own congregation, your own staff, your own following here, that is an absolute indicator of an extraordinary leadership to say that we don't have to do everything ourselves. That there's lots of things we'll have to do ourselves, but we don't have to do everything ourselves. We're not in this alone somehow. And listening to you read your purpose statement, Unity Kitchener's purpose statement, was moving to me today as you referred to the teachings of Jesus. And it was on my mind for this morning. I also did a class on the Beatitudes last month that was so far, and I've taught, I don't know, thousands of classes by now. I've been at this for over 20 years. And it was my very favorite class of my whole life. I got so back in touch with the depth of those teachings and the depth of the power that they hold as we apply them. Not as we espouse them, not as we quote them, but as we apply them. So I wanted to bring some of that forth today to have us to look at it collectively, because I believe, and I devote this time, many of you have served with me, you know that my mission in life is to serve those who serve. So I bow to each and every one of you, just like I did to Cheryl, because I know in certainty that you have taken an assignment, a divine assignment, to do some very special, vital, integral things for the world, for people, for humanity, and for the evolution of consciousness, your own soul's progression and that progression of humanity. So I bow to each and every one of you for that. I also am devoted and dedicated to getting empowered teachings to the whole of the planet. So today there's 40 some of us gathered here. We've reached this many. And then after this hour, we can reach this many by the way we live and teach and be, the way we respond to situations and circumstances. And then eventually we can reach this many, and then eventually we can reach and reach and reach. So thank you for co-inspiring with me to be that reach in the world in whatever ways you're serving. So as we think about the teachings of Jesus, the primary guidelines, if you will, so the principles that Unity follows, worded a different way, come from the basic teachings of Jesus as a master teacher, as a human being here and living a human experience, aware of divine presence, aware of divinity. So humanity as divinity, living divinity as humanity, living humanity as divinity. So think about these as I offer these this morning, and I invite you to see if you can just get a sense of them in your body. So today's session here together is about a transformation, not transformation that'll come, but transformation that is right here and right now. On this morning, on June 14th in 2020, we're stepping into and through a transformation of ourselves, of our own belief systems, of our own consciousness. So it's not up the road, but here now, and to claim that for yourself and to get a sense of what it would be like to be satisfied with what you have. What would that be like? And what's the consequences when we're not satisfied? The seeking, the needing, the wanting, the shoulding. Look at what that does for your spirit. So we still have wanting, but wanting doesn't have us. We're still going to seek, but we won't be dependent on it. We'll still have dream and desire and longing without being under its spell. What would that be like? And then to share from the fullness of that. Not sharing out of duty, not sharing out of I have to, not sharing out of I should, but sharing out of the fullness, out of the bounty of whatever I have is absolutely grace, providence, blessings, and then to give out of I have received so much, I have to give. I have to give based from a fullness, from an abundance, from a grace and gratitude and awareness of blessing, to be then that blessing to the world, to others in ways that would be meaningful to you. That's from that's somebody's interpretation that came from the class of somebody else's interpretation of blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Interpreted individually by one of the participants in the group as be satisfied, content with what I have, and to share those good things of what I have because I want to, because it feels right and good to me. And some of you believe, and I do too, that I believe God wants that too. Not that God needs that or demands that, but that whatever delight we get is also God's delight. The second one is for us to comfort those who are suffering. And each and every one of you do this in some way. You do it through calling people, contacting them, writing sweet notes, emails, texting, giving them food, being there to listen to them. So you've already got your ways of comforting people when they're suffering. So I think our life and my journey, and I'm inviting you into it today, is to see how can we dial that up a notch? How can you dial up, even if you're already reaching this many people, how could you just move it up 10 degrees? Just dial up that notch of this day, this week, I'm going to increase that for my own sake, for my own spirit, for my own self-care. I'm going to dial up how I'm going to be a comfort to somebody. And to be there and to give people encouragement instead of complaints. To be an encourager. Now, this one little thing could shift our consciousness if we fasted from complaining. And many of you that have served with me have heard me say over the years, you know, at my death, you know, at your death, at our death, somebody's going to be there going, here lies Martha. Here lies Martha. Here's the grave of Martha. She had issues. Well, just think about what that did to your spirit, even how funny it is. That's like, oh no, I don't want that on my gravestone. It's like, oh, well, here lies Martha. She could complain. I never saw her once that she could complain about something. And it's like, oh, on our spirit, here lies Martha. She had dramas. Here lies Martha. Instead of like, no, here lies Martha. Instead of Martha, here lies Martha who had issues. Here lies Martha who had ideas. Here lies Martha who was innovative, who found new ways, who turned the dial up a notch or two. And here lies Martha who had dramas. I said, no, here's Martha who had determination, who had a drive, who had an innate ability to just keep to resilience, a grit, to just keep going. So think about the difference of what it could mean for what's going to be written on your gravestone. Here lies you, and this is what she was about. This is what he was about. And that we're writing that today. And that in every interaction we have today, this week, this month, is our pop quiz, if you will, to say, okay, what message are you going to put in the world? What words are you going to speak? And the power that our words hold, the wisdom of that we hold, to say, no, I'm writing my epitaph now. I've got to like make sure that it's a Martha with contributions, not a Martha with complaints. I've got to make sure it's a Martha with innovation and ideas and breakthroughs, not a Martha with issues. And then what that could do for our vitality, for our uplift in our own spirit. And we're in a time now, I don't have to say anything about that. You're all aware of it, that people are in great loss. They're in upset, worry. The question mark's getting taller, not shorter, about how this ends and what it means and when and that. So this isolation and the cutoff that we've had with human touch and that is playing a havoc on spirit, on our spirits, on our souls in one way or the other. It'll either come out as anxiety, or maybe a little more bristly. You may have noticed your fuse is a little shorter. We get a little boogered up a little more quickly without understanding why. So such an important time to comfort ourselves as well, to be very quick and fast to offer grace to yourself. And then to the degree that we can offer grace to ourselves, we're more apt to offer grace in another situation or to another human being in a situation. So blessed are they who comfort. Blessed are they who mourn. Blessed are those who accept that loss is a part of our human learning processes. Blessed are those who bring comfort to themselves in the loss and to others in their losses. And then blessed are those with humility, a true sense of who you are. I've done talks titled humility and that for years, and I looked up the root word of humble, humility, and including humiliation. So who here wants to experience humiliation? Anybody? Come on, anybody? So nobody wakes up, no sane person wakes up and goes, oh, I just can't wait to be humiliated today. And we're absolutely going to experience it. It's not a question of if, just when, where, what's the circumstances. Just get a sense of who you would be if you didn't mind. If understanding the word of humility, the root word of the word means to be leveled. To be leveled. To be reduced to the nothingness. So get a sense of that, the power of living from that. And instead of one of my teachers says, oh, honey, it's so easy. It's so hard to try to be a somebody. It's so hard to try to be a somebody. So if we didn't try to be a somebody, who would we be? And aware of our own divinity, aware of presence, alive in principle. There's one power and one presence in all the universe. There's one power in all things and everything. And to live from that. So get a sense of what if it would be like living in humility of that knowing. That means then we get this who I ought to be, who I might be, who they better be, who they better not be, wouldn't be running our show. So blessed are those who live in humility. Only by the grace go I. Who would you be? Turning up the humility dial just a hair. And then the fourth one is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those who seek will find. Those who knock, the door will be opened. So think about whatever spiritual practice you have and the power of it, be it meditation, reflection, contemplation, writing, walks in nature, whatever. The reason that you're doing that is for this thirst, to satisfy this thirst, to see more broadly, to see more rightly, to see from a perspective of a higher mind, from the upper room of the mind instead of this lower triggered, how things ought to be, better be, should be, don't want them to be, demands, the willfulness in that. And to get a sense then of how whatever you're seeking, divine, the divine, creator, God, whatever you call it, how God has not moved. That it's always available. There's no time and no place, no circumstance that with just pausing, presencing ourselves, praying, meditating, letting go, forgiving, whatever is your spiritual practice, the capacity to find comfort, relief, sanity, clarity is 100% there, waiting for our connection, waiting for our pause, waiting for us to presence ourselves with that. So those who seek shall find. Those who knock, the door will be opened. And then a true content, a well-being, if you will. And the affirmation that I pulled and I've used for several weeks now in a row is this one. So I'll offer it here again today for you to consider today and this week. And I'd love you to speak this out loud and then silently. My heart knows well-being. My heart knows well-being. My mind knows well-being. my mind knows well-being, and get a sense of it and who you would be living from that place. The next of the Beatitudes is, blessed are the merciful. Blessed are those who show mercy, who offer mercy, for they will be shown mercy. So then I forgive for my own sake. I forgive to unhook me from a situation. I forgive to unhook me from the trauma, from the upset, from the loss, from the grief, so that I then, in my ability to do that, so the more I forgive, the more I am forgiven, the more forgiving I am, the more I receive. So then looking for ways purposefully to daily forgiveness work, not at the dying bed, not when I get a disease or a diagnosis, not when, but every day. Just like I'd brush my teeth or take a shower, every day, some forgiving of self and forgiving of others, not for their sake, but for my own, for me to take responsibility for my own soul's evolution, for my own soul's progression, and to free my heart and to free my mind. So blessed are those who forgive. Blessed are those who show mercy. And then blessed are those who are pure of heart. Blessed are those who are clean in heart, for they will know God. They will find God. They will seek God. They will live in relationship with God. They will live in atonement, at one-ment. They will live attuned to divine presence, attuned to the higher creation. So then we then, through our practices, and I've been quoted as using these two sets of three, and one of 3 P's, which is to pause, presence myself, and then proceed. Pause, presence myself, proceed. And your presence yourself may be pray, pause, pray, proceed. And then 3 C's, which are to calm myself first. You know, I read some of my teachings for thriving leaders and thriving ministries, healthy congregations. This man used to say, in emergency rooms, there's a list of 10 things to do. And the first thing on the list is check your own pulse. Make sure your pulse is restored before you start trying to treat anybody else. So calming myself first, staying connected to source, connected to divine intelligence, connected to divine order, divine will, connected to that, and then to stay the course. So calm, connected, and on course, which could answer the question, who do I want to be in this interaction? Regardless of what they're doing, regardless of what they're saying, who do I want to be in this interaction? Because that's what I'm responsible for. That's the extent of my responsibility, not what they do and not what they say, but what I do and what I say. And then blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. And just notice the allure. Although we claim we want peace, is that really true? Is it true that you want peace? And is there a part of you that wants to be right more than you want peace? And is there a part of you that wants to be the one that's been wronged more than you want peace. And look at the consequences when you don't consciously choose peace. I'm going to approach this from a peaceful place. So I've got to restore myself, regulate myself, remember who I am and remember whose I am before I proceed. So blessed are the peacemakers. Now I teased, this is why Unity Churches, Cheryl said you didn't want to hear her sing. She thought it was a blessing that you wouldn't be able to hear her sing. I'd say the same thing about me. It's not one of my gifts either. But I tease that Unity Ministries won't let me lead their peace song because I would sing it differently. So do y'all use the peace song, or do y'all use it here in your ministry? You know how it goes. And even if you're not using it, you probably have. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Oh, instead, what we're singing, if we don't actually live that out, is let there be peace on earth and let it begin with her. And as soon as she apologizes, I'll think about it. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with them. And as soon as they stop doing their madness, I'll think about it. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Regardless of their madness, regardless of their actions, let me make the contribution that I can make. And then the last one is, blessed are those who understand that suffering is included in the human experience. How many of you have tried to end suffering in your life? How many of you try to end suffering in other people's lives? So what's the chances? So instead, what if we accepted today, and I'm not asking you to accept it, I'm asking you to discover, to think, to transcend. What if we accepted that suffering is a part of our human learning processes? And that suffering is included here. So as long as I say we shouldn't be suffering, I'm creating more suffering. The more I say they shouldn't suffer while they're suffering, I'm perpetuating suffering, because then we got the suffering that's going on and then the suffering that says there shouldn't be any. Instead of including that there's suffering here, there will be emotional suffering, physical suffering, financial suffering, spiritual suffering. It's included here. It's part of the human learning process. So then blessed are those who accept that and have the stamina and the uncommon motivation to be with self and to be with others, even in suffering. So accepting God's law, God's way, divine will, order, law of order, whatever it is. So accepting life on life's terms and then adjusting ourselves in accordance to that. So take a pause here, if you will, and see what you've heard today that may be meaningful to you. And close your eyes if it supports you. And be present to a new way of being. A new way of being in situations, a new way of being in disagreements, a new way of being in loss, new way of being in the face of suffering. A new way of being in relationship with God. A new awareness of divinity, your own divinity. And I invite you to say these words and be attuned to the words like you're receiving an attunement. I know who I am. And then speak those words silently or aloud. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know what I am. And I know how I serve. I know how I serve. I know who you are. I know what you are. And I know how you serve. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. And so it is. Amen. So we give great thanks for this day, this message, this gathering of souls, this Unity Kitchener and their ministry. We give thanks for extra blessings all around, through and through, and always individually and collectively there in their community. And we know that all that we devote ourselves to here individually, that we have made a conscious contribution to the soul and the evolution of humanity today. So we devote and dedicate this work to that means. And so it is. Amen. Love to you all. And if I can ever serve you, get directly in touch with me. It's marthacreek.com, marthacreek.com. I'm also teaching the Beatitudes again in July. I'm using critical conversation skills. I'm also doing a book study called The 5 Invitations that I'm very alive in and have done already. So things that I love, and you're welcome to be a part of any of that. And all of that is at marthacreek.com on how to do that. Yeah. Thanks again for having me here with you today. All blessings to you.
Thank you so much, Martha. You are such a blessing to us all. And I wrote down here that I think what I would put on your grave is Martha Creek, shapeshifter with an unconditional loving heart.
Oh, well.
Our minds, you shift us into another space. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yep, you're welcome, honey. I love you too. So if you see that in me, honey, it means that you value that, so that can go on your grave too.
Bless you.